Part 37. Fantasy, Me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 361. Emperor of Hades. These two words are for other forces. He is just a very ambitious person, but to the immortal Lord, he is his lifelong enemy. He understood that this matter could not be solved by escaping on his own. Because the moment the inheritance was obtained from the two of them, it's already doomed. The emperor of the underworld was born, as if she rose overnight. As soon as she emerged, she appeared in the world with the strength of a great emperor. Many forces were unable to do anything to her. The immortal Lord has secretly promoted several conquests against the Hades emperor. But in the end, they all failed. Even his true form also had a hint of murderous intention towards Emperor Hades. But it was a pity that Emperor Hades was alert before he took action. Even if the two were a great emperor and a true immortal, the difference in strength was like a chasm. But the other party has too many tricks. No one can tell how many secrets are hidden in the other corpse, not even him. In desperation, he could only let go of his murderous thoughts and hide them temporarily. Based on the 8 incarnations, some of them floated out of the world, and some established their own power. Some were enemies of the Emperor of Hades, while others were on good terms with the underworld. From the current point of view, he still has the upper hand and can understand every move of Emperor Hades. But that might not be the case in the future. Once Hades' Emperor becomes an immortal, with the trump card in her hand, Changsheng Zhenjun cannot guarantee whether her current method of the 9th transformation of the soul will be able to hide from Hades' Emperor's detection. After all, both of their inheritances come from another world. From the perspective of inheritance, there is no distinction between superior and inferior. The only difference is the cultivator. In order to prevent the future Emperor of Hades from becoming a serious problem, he could only come to Tianji Tower to explore the tone of the owner of Tianji Tower. Maybe. What can this mysterious owner of Tianji do? Instead, as for himself, he doesn't care about the territory of power. Anyway, he has many incarnations. If added together, few forces in the earthly immortal world can compete with him in terms of sphere of influence, even Yugzu Palace is a bit inferior. That's why the Earth Immortal Realm and the Zixuan Realm went to war, but he did not participate in it. As soon as the two worlds merged, he rushed to the Tianyuan world. There was an incarnation of the lower world before. This time he came to Tianji Tower, and it was easy to get used to it. I dare to ask the seniors, how much do you know about the inheritance in the hands of the younger generations and the world they come from? Emperor Tai suppressed the shock in his heart and asked softly. He couldn't believe that such a person would appear in the Tianyuan world. He didn't even take the inheritance in his hands and the world in his eyes at all. You should ask how much you want to know, Li Yun said lightly. At the end, he added, in the Tianji Tower, as long as you can afford the price, you can know anything, including the heavens and the world, and past future. All heavens and worlds, past and future. Emperor Tai stirred up an uproar in his heart. After pondering for a long time, he asked Senior, can you tell me how terrifying the power behind Emperor Hades is? Since the inheritance in her hand has a provenance, it seems that this power is extraordinary. Will one day in the future, a person from that power will come to the immortal world? In other words, will the seniors take the initiative to integrate that world? Said. He took out a fairy medicine and put it on the table. It's a generous move. But Li Yun put away the elixir and said softly, but the value is still not enough. I can only answer one of your 3 questions. The inheritance in the hands of Emperor Hades came from the underworld, and during the heyday of the underworld, there was an emperor. Emperor? Emperor Tai was startled. The emperor mentioned by his predecessors seemed to be different from what he knew. Whether it was the earthly immortal realm, the Zixuan realm, or the Tianyuan realm, he could kill as many emperor-level figures as they came, browse he didn't even frown. But the senior emphasized that there is an emperor, which is obviously not the emperor he understands. It should belong to the emperor among the immortals. This realm has never been heard of or seen by him. How powerful and terrifying it is, he has no idea. I don't dare to think that a wisp of breath could shock him to death. No need to think about it, that kind of existence has jumped out of the long river of time, erased its past and future, and can be called immortal. Li Yun added casually. Logically speaking, this news is very valuable, but unfortunately, Emperor Hades himself knew it, so he took a discount and told Emperor Tai directly. But what they didn't know was that the underworld at its peak, there was more than one immortal emperor-level figure. Jumped out of the river of time. Emperor Tai was stunned. This was the first time he had heard of this concept. It seems that immortality is no longer the goal pursued by those people. If the underworld is so strong, is there a terrifying force behind him? After all, back then, the two corpses were hostile to each other and both fell. It looked like they were the same person. Maybe there was an immortal emperor-level figure standing behind them. Only in this way can it be justified. The two forces took action against each other. If there is no top-level combat power to suppress them, the stronger party can instantly destroy the weaker party. This is an eternal iron law. Don't think too much. In the underworld, the idea is to create reincarnation. All creatures cannot live forever and need to go through reincarnation. This proposition has offended countless forces, and the inheritance in your hands is just one of the countless forces. Li Yun said slowly. This sentence was like a basin of cold water, poured down on his head, which made Emperor Tai a little dumbfounded. He didn't come back to this turning point for a while. Feelings. The boss is the boss in the underworld. And the inheritance in his hands was just a passerby. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt that he had missed 100 million. You know, there were two ancient corpses in front of him. And he chose the other one. If he chose in terms of the underworld, doesn't it mean that he has now ruled the entire earthly immortal world? After all, he was born countless years earlier than the Emperor of Hades. You should be grateful for your choice. Li Yunfan Qingyun said calmly, although the underworld is strong, it has been wiped out. If you choose the underworld, you will be enemies in all realms in the future. It's just that you are still in the earthly immortal world. If it were other powerful worlds and knew that the underworld was still there, what would happen next? Tisk tisk. Li Yun clicked his tongue twice and said no more. What cultivators pursue is longevity. If that force forces them to enter reincarnation and let themselves dominate everything, every cultivator will go crazy. In the final analysis, reincarnation may be a good thing for ordinary creatures, but it is not a good thing for powerful practitioners. They even don't want to see the underworld appear at all. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 362. This. Thanks for the reminder, Senior. Emperor Tai suddenly realized, and a trace of fear arose in his heart. In this world, there is never a free lunch. When receiving a powerful inheritance, it also means that he has to shoulder the grievances after this inheritance. Emperor Ming now looks extremely prosperous. But in fact, she is already murderous in secret. Fortunately, her 6 paths of reincarnation has not been completely perfected. Once it is completely perfected and the 6 paths of reincarnation begins to operate, great terror will come. The 3 questions just mentioned, although the owner of Tianji only answered one. But it was enough. At least, he understood that the underworld was gone. There was only one Hades Emperor left, which was not a worry. When the Hades Emperor was progressing, why was he not making progress? Moreover, he was born more than the underworld Emperor wants to be early. After such a long time, he is not standing still. At present, his body has reached the peak of true immortality. He has no clue about the next step, so he puts all his energy on. He has 8 clones. In millions of years, his clones will step into the true fairyland one by one. With these 8 trump cards, it is not polite to say that he can walk sideways in the fairy world without anyone. His opponent, except for the master of TNG, no one can kill him. No matter who is his enemy, he will face the joint attack of the 9 true immortals. Just thinking about such scenes makes people, it shuddered. To a certain extent, the inheritance he received was no weaker than that of Hades. At least it would be a partial victory in terms of saving his life, as long as he persisted long enough. In addition, the talent could keep up. That is to cultivate 9. An immortal emperor is no problem. Of course. This is the most ideal situation. Whether you can reach this point depends on your destiny. Senior. Emperor Tai calmed down. He thought about it for a long time and said softly. The Underworld Emperor is extremely talented and wants to rebuild the Underworld. Now he has achieved initial results. If he doesn't stop it, I'm afraid there will be a big disaster in the future. Now, as soon as the 2 worlds merged, Hades Emperor had already annexed a large area of the Purple Xian realm. The scope of his control had skyrocketed. In addition, Hades Emperor's talent was so rare that it took only 100,000 years for the Great Emperor to reach his peak. Give her another 10,000 or 20,000 years. Maybe becoming an immortal is not a big problem, but this is a true immortal who has lived for hundreds of thousands of years. He is also a true immortal, but the length of time he has practiced can reveal many problems. The future achievements of this Hades Emperor are simply immeasurable. Let her continue to grow, and the underworld will reappear in the world. It is really not a dream. If she becomes the immortal emperor, who will still be her opponent? Emperor Tai does not believe that all the forces involved in the destruction of the underworld are intact. Maybe for after the destruction of the underworld, those forces were severely weakened. If a new lord of the underworld emerges from the earthly immortal world, at that time, no one can say whether the forces that participated in the destruction of the underworld would have the ability to do it again. It's really like that one day, Emperor Tai believed that he might just be cannon fodder. Since he didn't want to die, the best way was to kill Emperor Hades before she had grown up. There would be no hope for the underworld, and the world would naturally be unified in the future. So, Li Yun smiled and said lightly, "You want me to take action to kill Emperor Hades?" Well. Emperor Tai looked stiff. He has this idea. After all, I really can't kill Hades. If I could, I would have done it long ago. Looking at the worlds that are now integrated, it is estimated that the only one who has this strength is the Master of TNG. Now that the senior posters have opened their doors and spoken out, Emperor Tai no longer hid it. He said directly, "To be honest with you, Senior, I have this intention. If Senior is willing to take action, I can pay any price. TNG Tower is not an assassination organization. It is not a knife in the hands of any force." Li Yun shook his head. The first few times he took action, it was because he was short of secret points and there were not many fused worlds. He urgently needed the secret points, so he could not just sit back and watch Meng Qingzi and Ao Xian fall. Now times have changed. Several worlds have merged, Tianyu, and the level of the world has suddenly risen. He is already quite lacking in secret points. Who he is helping is a little unreasonable. Moreover, the establishment of the underworld by Hades Emperor has nothing to do with him. If he intervenes, it is purely idle. There are assassination organizations in Tianyuan realm, Zixuan realm, and Earth Immortal realm. Why don't you ask them to take action? Li Yongzi said narrowly. Emperor Tai was speechless. If they were useful, they would have gone there long ago. But those assassination organizations are too weak. They can deal with ordinary holy places with ease, but when dealing with behemoths like the underworld, they can only deliver food wherever they go. If you can't even do anything about your own body, what's the use of assassinating the organization? Senior, Emperor Hades has a strange treasure in his hand to protect his body. I wonder if there is a way, Senior, to make the strange treasure disappear in his hand. Emperor Tei retreated and did the next best thing. He planned to take action himself. As long as the life-saving thing in Emperor Ming's hand is gone, his own true immortal strength will not cost him too much effort to deal with Emperor Ming. Of course there is. Li Yun said calmly. Please give me some advice from my seniors. Emperor Tei's eyes lit up. He took out a bottle of elixir in his hand and placed it in front of Li Yun. Li Yun glanced at it, then withdrew his gaze and said indifferently. Not enough. Not enough. Emperor Tei was not worried but overjoyed. It seems that the senior is going to sell himself a big news. The more valuable the news, the greater its effect will naturally be. There is no doubt that the news in the hands of the senior may really be able to put Emperor Ming to death. He took out 2 bottles of elixir again, put them on the table, and asked. Senior, is it worth enough now? About there. Li Yun put away the elixir and said calmly, 1 year later, Emperor Hades will become an immortal in the earthly immortal realm and the Jui in heavenly palace. When she becomes an immortal, she will put away her life-saving things. A figure like Emperor Ming cultivates extremely fast. In just 100,000 years, he defeated countless geniuses and took the lead in reaching the threshold of becoming an immortal. With her character, to survive the Thunder Tribulation, she would naturally not rely on saving her life. After all, although the Thunder Tribulation is extremely powerful, it also has many benefits. It can comprehend the principles of heaven and earth, and it can also temper the body. Weaker cultivators need to rely on treasures for protection. But the Emperor of Hades does not need it. The Thunder Tribulation is not necessary for her, it doesn't cause much trouble at all. It's more like a gift from heaven and earth to help her reach a higher level. 1 year. When Emperor Tei heard this, his expression was astonished and a little unbelievable. Why so fast? But when he thought about the speed of cultivation of Emperor Hades, he was immediately relieved. Emperor Hades was already amazingly talented, let alone 1 year later. Become the Emperor. Even if the master of Tianji told him that he would become the Emperor in 1 day, he would not be surprised. After all, in the past 100,000 years, Emperor Hades has set too many cultivation records. 1 more is not too much, and 1 less is not too much. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 363. Good. Li Yun nodded. 1 year is enough. A cold light flashed in Emperor Tei's eyes. With his own strength, it is not easy to kill a person who has overcome a calamity and became an immortal. The only thing that gave him a headache was that Emperor Hades had too many cards. Once she put away her life-saving skills, all he needs to do is take action from a distance, and when the heavenly catastrophe comes, coupled with his own magical power, the Emperor of Hades will definitely be dead or alive. In this case, the junior will take his leave first. Emperor Tei stood up, bowed his hands, and said, See you next time. Li Yun nodded without much obstruction. Well. Emperor Tei's expression changed slightly, but he didn't take it to heart. He chuckled lightly and said, if this junior has any questions in the future, he will naturally come to Tianji Tower again. Then I won't send it away. Li Yun waved his hand. The seniors don't have to send each other off, and the juniors have to resign. After that, Emperor Tei turned and left. Li Yun's expression remained unchanged. He sat on the chair, picked up the teacup and took a sip. Looking at the back of Emperor Tai, who left in a hurry, there was a meaningful expression on the corner of his mouth. The smile. This Emperor Tai, or the Immortal Lord, is still too confident in his own strength. The final result may only be a disappointment. After all, the Emperor of Hades is the Emperor of Hades, and he is the descendant of the underworld. There are many trump cards, one life-saving thing is missing, but there are other things. It is a bit too difficult to ambush the opponent with just one true immortal. In this regard, Li Yun is helpless. Emperor Tai thinks that his own body will take action, the Emperor of Hades was at his fingertips, and the only thing that stood in the way was the life-saving thing. Now that the life-saving thing was gone, Emperor Underworld was just the meat on the chopping board. Therefore, he did not ask how to kill Emperor Underworld, and Li Yun naturally would not take the initiative to kill him. Tell the other party the news. After all, this news also costs money. Outside the Tianji building, Emperor Tai came to the outside world, held up the light green umbrella in his hand, and looked back at Tianji Tower, with a look of sure victory flashing on his face. Subsequently, he turned his head and looked towards the Chaos Star Sea. It's time to come back. A soft murmur came out. A symbol flashed in his palm and disappeared between heaven and earth. After doing this, he raised his feet and left. He came to Tianyuan World, or to Tianji Tower, just to understand the Underworld Emperor. The news, now that the news is in hand, the previous clone should also be taken back. The stream of light cuts through the sky and the earth. In the dark and deep sea of stars, a large swath of starry sky was illuminated. Deep in the Chaos Star Sea, a tragic battlefield lay across the battlefield, with all kinds of fairy lights bursting out across hundreds of millions of miles. Any person below the Emperor level who came even slightly close to this place would be instantly wiped out. It's here. The flow of time has slowed down. I don't know how much time has passed. Several great emperors were still fighting, and the battle was extremely fierce. The emperor's blood flowed across the sky, shattering the void one after another, and chaos and mist filled the air, sweeping in all directions. Every great emperor unleashed his true fire and mobilized his whole body's true energy in order to kill the opponent. Meng Qingzi stood in a large formation, his body was very thin, and he was dressed in a black robe, hung loosely on his body, and his whole body seemed to have been drained. Like a piece of rotten wood, it is full of twilight. He had just become emperor, and before his realm was stable, he caused a big mess. Now he couldn't escape at all, relying on the formation, he could just barely hold on. The formation at this moment was shaky. Faced with the siege of two people at the same level, he simply couldn't sustain it for too long. Is I going to die? Meng Qingzi was unwilling to give up, and a gleam of light bloomed in his eyes, illuminating the world, but soon dimmed. Two emperor-level creatures besieged him. Each of them was much stronger than him. It was already very long for him to persist until now. It's not easy. Here, we have to thank Ao Xian for his help. If Ao Xian hadn't taken action, he would have died long ago without even the scum left. On the other side of the battlefield, Ao Xian was as embarrassed as Meng Qingzi, covered with blood. Stained with blood, the emperor's robe was broken, and the dragon ball in his hand had lost its former glory and was covered with cracks. It seemed that it would break at any time. Fellow Taoist, if you have anything to say, how about we sit down and talk about it? Ao Xian stood in the void, with the bloody essence flowing on his body, and he was quickly repairing his injuries. Taking advantage of this time, he looked at the two great emperors opposite him, and said quickly, "Ah!" An emperor-level creature stepped through the void and crushed the sky. His battle clothes shone brightly, and his long hair fell down. He was very majestic. That man set up a large formation to ambush us before the inheritance of the true immortal, and even took away our inheritance. You are a fellow traveler with him, what can you say? Misunderstand. This is all a misunderstanding. Ao Xian wanted to cry but had no tears. This is really unjust. My original intention was just to find a few people to practice my skills with. After all, I have greatly improved my strength in the true immortal inheritance, and I want to find someone to verify it. After much deliberation, no one was suitable. Just when he was about to give up the idea, he suddenly learned that Menkingzi was being hunted in the Chaos Star Sea. So he came here, hoping to find someone to fight with. But who would have thought that these great emperors would be so ruthless? Everyone who saw him felt as if he had seen the enemy who killed his father. He rushed up with red eyes. How pitiful was it that Menkingzi had no idea what he had robbed them of. Moreover, Menkingzi didn't do himself any favors. He just waded into this muddy water in a daze, and now it's become a luxury to escape. Misunderstand. The emperor who just spoke had a sneer on his lips, and the armor on his body was clanging. The armor made of fairy gold had a kind of life wave that spread out. It was as if he had been resurrected, shining brightly in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Go ahead and regret it on your way to life. Some things are not something you can interfere with at will. After saying that, the great emperor was about to take action. Wait. Ao Xian's heart trembled, and he quickly shouted loudly. The sound was like a loud bell, spreading like a bell. The great emperor said softly and frowned slightly. To be honest with you, not one of you can take this emperor's life. Do you know who is standing behind me? Who? The emperor in armor said indifferently with a contemptuous smile. The owner of Tianji. Ao Xian uttered 4 words in a deep voice. As soon as these 4 words came out, the entire universe became a little more solemn. Everyone present had a look of surprise and uncertainty on their faces. This matter concerned the owner of Tianji building, and they had to treat it with caution. After all, everyone present has experienced the strength of Master Tianji. To put it bluntly, Master Tianji can easily kill each of them with one finger. Are you kidding? The great emperor, his face as sinking as water, said in a cold voice. This emperor owes Senior Tianji Luzu a valuable treasure. If you suppress and kill me, that valuable treasure will naturally be gone. When Senior Tianji Luzu is furious, none of you will be able to escape the liquidation. Ao Xian said in a sonorous tone. Although he was extremely calm on the surface, deep inside, he was panicking and kept saying, Senior, don't blame me. This junior is also forced to have no choice. When this junior goes back, those 2 quasi-emperor level items will definitely be returned. No. The junior returns 4 quasi-emperor items. The senior poster can see all the worlds, he should have heard these words, right? Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 364. In the battlefield. There was deathly silence, and every great emperor stopped their attack in unison. A pair of eyes looked over, which greatly increased Ao Xian's pressure. He understood that in his current state, any emperor present could kill him. Just in case. One of them, a certain great emperor, learned that he was just indebted to the senior poster for 2 quasi-emperor level items, and he would be doomed in the next moment. After all, just 2 quasi-emperor level items. Any great emperor can afford it? How does Tianji Luzu exist? Do you care about the existence of an ant like you? The emperor-level creature in battle robes, with cold and captivating eyes, took a step forward, approached Ao Xian, and said in a deep voice, moreover, you have just become an emperor, how much can you owe the senior poster? You can try. Ao Xian's heartbeat stopped, but his expression remained unchanged and he responded calmly. That. This emperor-level creature narrowed his eyes slightly, and just when he was about to speak, a stream of light flew towards him. He reached out to take it, took a closer look at the contents, and his expression suddenly changed. Immediately, he changed the topic and said calmly, "Today I will spare your life, not because you should not die, but because I respect the senior TNG building master, and for the sake of senior, I will let you go." The method of the 9 transformations of the Yuan Shen can be used to refine 8 clones. Each clone is a being of flesh and blood and has its own thoughts. Except for the main body, which can communicate with the clone's mind and body and control the life and death of the clone, the other clones are independent of each other and cannot communicate secretly. And just now, this emperor in battle clothes received the news from Emperor Tai. Now that the true monarch of immortality is still in seclusion, these 8 clones need to rush back to the earthly immortal realm to secretly lay out plans against the underworld emperor. Or don't take action. Now that he plans to take action, he must kill him with one strike. This is the plan of the immortal lord. In the future, you and I will meet again one day. Then you won't have such good luck. The emperor in armor said something meaningful. Before he finished speaking, he turned and left. Only the other people were left, looking at each other. This. An emperor of the Zixuan realm was confused. Even now, he still doesn't know what happened. Why did the emperor of the earthly immortal realm leave so quickly? Did he receive some important news, so he left? Or is he afraid of the owner of TNG? If it's the former, that's it. The odds of winning 3 against 2 are still the same. After all, Meng Qingzi and Ao Xian are both at the end of their strength, but if it is the latter, this needs to be carefully considered. Against the odds, there is still hope. If you violate the secret of the original poster, it will be difficult for you to survive. Don't look at the chaotic sea area, which is isolated from the outside world. It is difficult for the outside world to convey news. Even the emperor will be lost, but this obstacle is nothing in front of the master of TNG. If Ao Xian really has another relationship with the owner of TNG, if Ao Xian is killed today, everyone present will be shocked by what happens next. What to do? The emperor of the Zixuan realm asked in a deep voice. Beside him, Ling Xiao and another emperor of the Forbidden Zone from the Tianyuan realm were silent. It was obvious that everyone was weighing the seriousness of this matter. Senior TNG landlord. The great emperor of Tianyuan realm raised his head and looked into the void. There was loneliness above, only eternal darkness, and there was no sound for a long time. Retreat. The emperor said helplessly. Everyone knows the strength of the TNG tower. Ao Xian asked for asylum in the name of the TNG tower in the chaotic Star Sea. He must have known that there is no response from the TNG tower. It is obviously the acquiescence of the TNG tower. At this time, it was a bit unreasonable to take action again. As soon as these 2 words were spoken, the 3 great emperors went away and quickly left the chaotic Star Sea area. In the same place, Meng Qingzi and Ao Xian let out a sigh of relief at the same time. Fellow Daoist Ao Xian, what exactly do you owe senior TNG building master? In the formation. Meng Qingzi asked curiously, ignoring his injuries. Well. Ao Xian was startled, with a bit of embarrassment on his face. It's just a valuable treasure. I never had time to rush to TNG Tower before, so I delayed it until now. Oh. Meng Qingzi smiled casually and didn't ask any questions. This time, thanks to Taoist friend Ao Xian's generous help, how about we recover from our injuries and go to TNG Tower together? Meng Qingzi opened his mouth to invite. Can. Ao Xian did not refuse. He was definitely going to the TNG building. If he kept dragging those quasi-emperor level items, he was also worried that they would arouse the dissatisfaction of the owner of the TNG building. This method of moving the owner of the TNG building out as the backstage, just use it once. Use it again. I guess no one else needs to take action. Senior TNG poster may have to shoot him to death first. By the way, fellow Taoist, Did you notice just now that the great emperor of the earthly immortal realm had received a message? Menkingzi asked aloud. In the sea of chaotic stars, everything will lose its direction, but now there are people who can deliver the message. It is simply incredible. As far as they know, no one seems to be able to do it except the master of Tianji. But if the senior Tianji poster takes action, there is obviously no need to go to such trouble. The earthly immortal world is, after all, a world of immortals, and it is not surprising that there are some mysterious methods. Ao Xian didn't take it to heart. He said something casually, walked directly to a dead ancient star, absorbed the vitality of heaven and earth, and began to recover from his injuries. Is it? Menkingzi frowned slightly. He didn't know why. He always felt that it was not simple here, but specifically where it was not simple. He couldn't tell at all for a while. Only by leaving the Chaos Star Sea could he know what happened. When Menkingzi and Ao Xian quickly recovered from their injuries. Zixuan Realm. On an ancient star. An imperial palace is located. The brilliance of this place soared into the sky, and formations emerged one after another, turning into a vast world of immortal laws. This city is connected to the starry sky and connected to the universe. It stands under the sky and belongs to a city of stars. The brilliant meteors streak across, making this place even more mysterious and unpredictable. At this time, in the main hall, Emperor Moun was covered in blood and his clothes were torn. He stood in the center. His body was as straight as a mountain. Even though he was severely injured, no one around him dared to approach. Opposite him, deep in the palace, the darkness is deep and swallows everything. It can be vaguely seen that there is a terrifying figure sitting upright. She does not say a word, just like a supreme emperor. Suppressed all realms of the universe. Every move carries a domineering air that looks down on the world. Zixuanja has been defeated. A cold voice sounded, and the entire hall became extremely empty for an instant. There were sounds of ghosts crying and howling, which looked extremely terrifying. It seemed like it could swallow the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, and cause the universe to collapse instantly. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 365. You look at the Zixuan realm too simply. Do you think that a mere underworld can suppress the entire Zixuan realm? Emperor Moun responded. He didn't believe a word of what Emperor Ming said. Although he was suppressed, it didn't mean that the entire Zixuan realm was vulnerable. Apart from himself, the countless years of experience in the Zixuan realm were no joke. He has a feeling that in the near future, an immortal will appear in the Zixuan realm. At that time, all the situations will be reversed. Does your confidence come from them? The Ming Emperor's voice was cold. As soon as he finished speaking, the immortal light exploded in the hall, and the Emperor's aura erupted, shaking the time and space of eternity. It directly turned into a light curtain, spreading down from above. Numerous names appeared on it. Among them, the Emperor list is impressively listed. Emperor Bai Li, Emperor Yunai, 9th on the Emperor list, 10th on the Emperor list. People like these, do you think they can guard the Zixuan realm? Underworld Emperor spoke with an air of scorning the heavens and extremely confident. Emperor list. When Emperor Moun saw the words, his pupils shrank, and then he laughed. The sound became louder and louder, shaking the void. After a long time, the laughter slowly stopped. It seems that you already know the existence of Tianji Tower. Now that you know about Tianji Tower, I think you should have understood the strength of the senior owner. To tell you the truth, the reason why the earthly immortal realm merged with the Zixuan realm. It's because the senior Tianji poster took action. Your earthly immortal realm is launching a massive attack on the Zixuan realm. If you offend the master of Tianji Tower, your destruction will be right in front of you. Oh! Is it? Deep in the hall, a cold voice sounded, and he said indifferently, as far as I know, the number of times Master Tianji has taken action is very few, and every time he takes action, there is a reason. In my opinion, Tianji Tower should not interfere in the war between the two worlds. After all, if Master Tianji wants to intervene, you should be the first to destroy the Zixuan realm. If I remember correctly, not long ago, you should be the first to conquer the Tianyuan realm, right? You. Emperor Moun's expression froze. This matter is not a secret, you will know it after a little inquiry. Before the fusion of the Zixuan realm and the Tianyuan realm, the two realms had already started a war. After the fusion, the fighting still did not stop. There were countless wars that broke out between the two realms. Since there was not much difference in strength between the two worlds, chaos did not completely break out. If the Zixuan realm also possesses overwhelming strength, it is hard to say whether the current Tianyuan realm still exists or not. It can be seen from this that the emperor's actions are all within the scope of the tacit consent of the master of Tianji. How can he be in danger of destruction? Emperor Ming's voice was calm and unhurried. Every word he spoke made Emperor Moun turn pale. He understood. Emperor Ming was right. The chance of Master Tianji intervening was too low. Instead, he just sat back and watched the Zixuan realm. The probability of destruction is higher. You don't need to be too proud. Senior Tianji building master wants to merge the worlds of heaven and earth. The purple Xian realm and the earthly immortal realm are just the beginning. There will definitely be more terrifying worlds to merge with in the future. Emperor Moun looked sad and his eyes became a little hollow. He seemed to have seen the future of the purple Xian realm and the earthly immortal realm, and said softly, "Once a more powerful world comes, the earthly immortal world will inevitably make the same mistakes again. At that time, you may not be able to survive in the underworld. You don't need to worry about this." Emperor Ming's expression was cold and his voice was without any emotion. In her eyes, Emperor Moun was like an ant who could be easily slapped to death. The origin of the underworld is not something you can guess. Even if the master of Tianji Tower does not integrate the heavens and the worlds, one day, this emperor will lead his troops to counterattack the heavens and the worlds. Only the underworld can stop the war in the worlds. Give the world a bright future. He. Emperor Moun sneered, with a very disdainful look on his face, and said, "What a man! He has brought peace to all the heavens and worlds, and the underworld has entered the purple mysterious realm. It only takes a few days. Hundreds of millions of living beings have been killed or injured in the Zixuan realm. Is this the end of the world? You are wrong." Underworld Emperor's voice was still indifferent, and she said slowly, "All living beings suffer. Immortality is not as beautiful as imagined, death is just the beginning, reincarnation is eternity. And after entering the purple mysterious realm, who said anything about killing living beings?" Said. Deep in the hall, the pitch-black figure raised his hand and looked a little empty. Suddenly, the void cracked. A gloomy world revealed the tip of the iceberg in the hall. It was a dark world with very little light. It is pale, and there is no grass growing on the ground. There is a wilderness everywhere, revealing a desolate and lonely atmosphere. It can only be seen. On the ground, there are several magnificent cities standing in an orderly manner, like ancient giant beasts, lying on the ground. Lying on the ground, it was shocking. And within millions of miles with the city as the center, there were countless teams, meandering forward. If you look carefully, you can see that they are countless creatures, without touching their feet. Land, heading towards the city. In just one glance, there are no less than tens of millions of creatures. Including the creatures in the city, there are probably hundreds of millions of them. It can be said that they are countless. As you can see, if these people die in the aftermath of your battle, there is no other option but to disappear into ashes. But after the existence of the underworld, they have a way out. That is reincarnation. Reincarnation. Emperor Mon looked at the gloomy world and was completely stunned. A glimpse of the whole world could be seen. He could sense that the plan of the underworld was not small. Once it comes true, I am afraid it will be as the underworld emperor said. The world will be brought under the control of the underworld. This is simply too scary. He doesn't know whether other forces in the outside world know that the underworld is rejecting the souls of the dead. If they know, I am afraid that few forces will be able to sit still. After all, how many elders of that sect have died? What if these people know that after the death of their elders, the souls of the underworld were captured here? How will they arrange reincarnation? I'm afraid those forces will join forces immediately and attack the underworld together. The underworld does not belong to this world, and its origins are extremely mysterious. Even the owner of Tianji Tower may not be able to deduce the clues of the underworld. Mingdi said firmly. In her opinion, the master of Tianji is very strong, so strong that the current underworld cannot afford to provoke him. After all, the master of Tianji is a supreme being who can integrate the earthly and immortal world, but similarly, the origin of the underworld is also unknown. No, there used to be an immortal emperor sitting in charge. People like that, overlooking the long river of time, the world is decaying, but I am immortal. It is very simple to merge several worlds. Maybe. The master of Tianji Tower may not be as scary as the immortal emperor. So, even the owner of Tianji Tower is not very capable of provoking the underworld in its heyday. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 366. There is a way to take death. Emperor Mon said coldly. Before he stepped into the Tianji Tower, he was so confident, but then his thoughts changed 180 degrees. In his opinion, the Ming Emperor in front of him was different from my former self is exactly the same. I don't know the origin of the underworld, and I don't want to know, but one thing, I can tell you, the origin of the master of Tianji is more terrifying than you think. Emperor Mon's face became very cold, his voice was extremely cold, and he said, the current behavior of the underworld will lead to destruction one day. Is it? Deep in the hall, the dark and deep voice spoke without comment. She raised a finger and shot out a blazing light, which fell on Emperor Mon. Tianji Tower, I will go there sooner or later. Emperor. Mon frowned. He was horrified when he saw the palm prints from the other party. He took 2 steps back and said angrily, what are you going to do? Don't do anything, just get back what belongs to me. Emperor Ming's voice was indifferent. A symbol condensed out, dissipating the power of God, making the world tremble, and the immortal light surged, as vast as Wanyang, and suddenly sank into the body of Emperor Mon. The entire hall emitted a terrifying roar. Rumbling. The next moment, an ancient token floated out of Emperor Mon's body, blooming with brilliance and shining in all directions, as if pointing out the way forward for endless creatures. Is it this token? Emperor Mon's body shook and he suddenly came back to his senses. No wonder the Hades Emperor wanted to capture him after he lost his fighting power. It turned out to be for this token. Now, he finally understands. He used to, the creatures in the earthly immortal realm that were suppressed and killed belonged to the underworld. It was precisely because of this token that he fell to this point. You understand too late. Underworld Emperor said to himself. Before the earthly immortal realm and the purple Xian realm merged together, she was already preparing for the cross-border thing. After all, this token has an extraordinary effect. It can point out the way forward in the chaos. Now that the two worlds are merged together, naturally this token is of little use. It can be taken back now and used for the next trip to other worlds. Now, would you like to join the underworld? Ming Emperor said in a faint voice. Her eyes were flickering and she looked at Emperor Mon with an extremely cold expression. I'm afraid I've disappointed you. Emperor Mon stood proudly and responded calmly, I am not a person who is inferior to others. Pity. The two words were spoken. A burst of murderous intention shocked the world. Emperor Mon's hair stood on end, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his heart was extremely shocked. She wants to kill me? This thought just appeared, and soon the murderous intention disappeared, and a cold voice came and said indifferently, take him down and imprison him. Yes. Two black figures appeared silently, kneeling on one knee and respectfully accepting orders. After Emperor Mon was taken down, the entire hall fell into deathly silence. The dark figure deep in the hall slowly stood up and looked at Zixuan end of the world. Tianji Tower. A soft murmur came out. The figure in the palace disappeared. The other side. Earthly immortal realm, inside Yugzu Palace. In a hall filled with immortal energy, several figures are lined up. Master, the matter of the integration of the two realms has been found out clearly. The source of the matter is because of the Tianji Tower in the Tianyuan realm. According to what my disciple Yang Jian said. The owner of the Tianji Tower is good at deducing the secrets of the universe. Sitting within a square inch of the Tianji Tower, he can investigate everything in the world. Even the previous Zixuan realm was fused by the Tianji building master. Because of this, our earthly immortal realm lost contact with the Zixuan realm. Huang Yun took every detail and told all the information he had found out one by one. Is this happening? The headmaster of Yugzu Palace is a young man with a handsome appearance, but his temples are grey, and his eyes are so deep that the vicissitudes of life cannot be seen. The avenues around him are harmonious, and the sound of heaven vibrates, resounding throughout the world. If that's the case, things get a little tricky. The headmaster of Yugzu Palace frowned. The two realms suddenly merged, and many forces launched cross-border attacks. Only a few forces were still waiting and watching, and among them was Yugzu Palace. They have not taken action, and they are not keeping themselves clean. But he wanted to find out more before taking action. But now, the news brought back by his junior brother was like a heavy hammer, making him unable to calm down. Brother headmaster, there is no need to worry. The master of Tianji Tower is aloof from the world and has never interfered with any power or grudge. As long as our Yugzu Palace does not provoke Tianji Tower. Come to think of it, the Tianji building master will not take the initiative to deal with Yugzu Palace. Huang Yun's tone was calm and he said slowly. I disagree with what my junior brother said. In the main hall, there was an old man with a thin face, holding a floating dust. He stroked his long beard with his hand, shook his head slightly and said, although the master of Tianji has never been involved in power and grudges, he is very likely to integrate with other worlds again. Junior brother, can you guarantee that our earthly immortal world will be the last world that Master Tianji merges with? This. Huang Yun's expression froze. He has also thought about this problem, but the strength of the Master of Tianji is unfathomable. He wants to merge with a certain world. Who can stop him? Who dares to stop it? Today, Yugzu Palace takes action against the Zixuan realm. There is no guarantee that a more terrifying world will come over in the future. Maybe they will also take action against the earthly immortal realm immediately. At that time, how different was our immortal world from today's Zixuan world? The old man said solemnly. Although the master of Tianji Tower is aloof from the world, the other forces are different. Facing a weak world, no one can remain calm. Everyone wants their sphere of influence to be wider. That's the only way. You can get more cultivation resources. Only with more resources can you be stronger in the future. No one is immune to this, even true immortals. According to what the senior brother said, we, Yugzu Palace, are going to sit on the sidelines and watch other forces in the earthly immortal realm swallow up the Zixuan realm, and we get nothing. Huang Yun looked unhappy. His senior brother was not weak in strength, but he was too cautious in his actions. Even the path he took was different from other cultivators. No, the old man shook his head again and said slowly, what I mean is that our Yugzu Palace should make a decision before taking action. It is true that there are true immortals in Yugzu Palace. But the backer of their Yugzu Palace is not the immortal true monarch, nor the emperor of Hades, but Taoist Zixu. In the earthly immortal world, Taoist Zixu is the one who has recently become an immortal. A supreme being, he is only in the early stage of a true immortal and does not have the confidence to become an immortal lord. After all, it has been a long time since the immortal true lord became an immortal. He has now reached the peak of a true immortal and may break through at any time. He even spends his free time, and also refined 8 clones. Now all of them have become emperors. Moreover, Emperor Ming is not comparable to Taoist Zixu. Emperor Ming holds the inheritance of the underworld, and few people can kill her. In addition, her talent is peerless. Becoming an immortal is just a matter of time. Yugzu Palace does not have these 2 points, so they must be cautious when facing the Zixuan realm. It is not to deal with the Zixuan realm. It is to deal with other worlds that will be integrated in the future. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 367. Dear masters, uncles, and disciples Yang Jian, I have something to say that I don't know whether to say or not. Yang Jian was dressed in white clothes, spotless, and stood up. He first bowed to the elders of the masters, and then said, Nephew. The headmaster of Yugzu Palace glanced at everyone, nodded slightly and said, but it doesn't matter. Zixuan realm and Tianyuan realm, no force in these 2 realms is my enemy of Yugzu Palace. What all the elders are worried about is only other worlds in the future. Yang Jian was talking eloquently. Many Yugzu Palace elders nodded when they heard these words. This is indeed what they are worried about. Now that Yugzu Palace is taking action, even if it occupies a lot of territory, what can it do? Other worlds after coming here, no matter how much space the Yugzu Palace occupies, they may have to give it up. If you are unlucky, even the Yugzu Palace itself is in danger of being destroyed. After all, how many forces have been destroyed in the Zixuan world now? The fate of those forces is very likely to be a lesson for Yugzu Palace. It is also because many elders of Yugzu Palace plan to sit on the sidelines and preserve their vitality. Once other worlds merge, Yugzu Palace will at least have the power to fight. It will not be wasted in the purple mystic realm in vain. After all, the current Zixuan realm is not too weak, and their great emperors can still take it out, if they really pull someone of the same level to die together. It won't be too easy for anyone. Even if you don't die, you will be seriously injured. Go on. The headmaster of Yugzu Palace looked calm, his eyes opened and closed, and he didn't know what he was thinking. In the opinion of younger generations, we might as well imitate the 9 nether demon sect in the Tianyuan realm. Yang Jian cupped his hands and said, Oh. Many people raised their brows when they heard the 4 words Juyu demon sect, and were very surprised. The 4 words Juyu demon sect were extremely unfamiliar to them. No one present had heard of it. After all, they were far away in Tianyuan world and have no connection with them. Disciple, what is so unique about this 9 nether demon sect? Huang Yun asked in confusion. Nothing unique about it? Yang Jian chuckled lightly and spoke out everything he heard in the Tianyuan world. Not long ago, the 9 nether demon sect was in danger of being destroyed. At that time, the Juyo demon sect was besieged on all sides, and the emperor alone had offended everyone. According to the younger generation, the ancestor of the Juyo demon sect was the quasi-emperor at that time. The situation of Juyo demon sect at that time cannot be said to be exactly the same as that of Yugzu Palace now, but there are some similarities. What my disciple said makes sense. Huang Yun nodded. There are no enemies on the surface of Yugzu Palace, but they are worried about the invisible enemies. No one knows what world the Tianji building master will merge with next. What if he creates a terrifying world? Let alone Yugzu Palace, all forces will have to kneel down, and it is not even clear whether the earthly immortal world can be preserved. How did the nephew, the ancestor of the Nine Nether Demon sect, resolve this crisis? The old man who spoke just now asked with curiosity. The ancestor of the Nine Nether Demon sect only did two things. Yang Jian looked around at everyone and said with a smile. First, he moved the mountain gate to the vicinity of Tianji Tower. Second, he entered Tianji Tower and bought the method of becoming an emperor from the senior owner of Tianji Tower. When they heard this, everyone present's eyes lit up. They didn't need to think about the Juyo demon sect's ancestor becoming an emperor, because it was useless. An emperor was dispensable to Yugzu Palace. Moreover, their ancestors are too far away from the next realm. For a while, there is no need to think about breaking through. However, the matter of Juyo demon sect moving away the mountain gate has made everyone excited. This is planned to rely on the secret of heaven. Does the poster's reputation deter all other forces and make them avoid taking action? This has to be said, this is a good way. Their Yugzu Palace does not need to move to the vicinity of Tianji Tower, they only need to move to Tianyuan world. Judging from the actions of Master Tianji to integrate the worlds during this period, it is to integrate the other worlds with the Tianyuan world as the center. As long as there are a few more worlds, the Tianyuan world will become the center of this vast world. No matter which direction you go from, integrating a new world, Tianyuan world can guarantee absolute peace, and no attacks from other worlds will come for a while. What the nephew said is not unreasonable. The old man stroked his beard, with a thoughtful look on his face, as if he was thinking about how feasible this matter was. After thinking for a long time, he came to a conclusion. That is, there is no danger. The Tianyuan realm is the same as the Zixuan realm. There are no true immortals. The arrival of their Yugzu Palace is like a dimensionality reduction blow. Who can resist it? Having said that, when Yugzu Palace went there, it was not that they deliberately made enemies of the Tianyuan realm. They were just looking for a place to stay. From now on, the Tianyuan world has encountered a threat, and their Yugzu Palace can also help, right? With the arrival of a behemoth like the Yugzu Palace, it stands to reason that everyone in the Tianyuan world should be overjoyed. Of course. This is all their wishful thinking. The idea. No one can tell how the major forces in the Tianyuan world would react if they saw that Yugzu Palace was about to step into their own world, because they did not dare to bet on whether Yugzu Palace had any different intentions. If it is true as the nephew said, it would be a good idea for Yugzu Palace to ignore the Zixuan realm and directly step into the Tianyuan realm. The headmaster of Yugzu Palace said aloud. Obviously, he was also tempted. How about we let another force take the lead in the Tianyuan world to see what the background of the Tianyuan world is like? Huang Yun said in a deep voice. It will be difficult for their earthly immortal realm to be peaceful, and a war is bound to begin. Since a war is about to begin, it would be better to let a few forces affiliated with Yugzu Palace go explore the water first. Take a look at the water in the Tianyuan realm. How deep is it? Not busy. The leader of Yugzu Palace raised his hand to stop Huang Yun's proposal. He looked up into the void and said softly, at present, it seems that several other unmoving forces in the earthly immortal world should have the same idea as our Yugzu Palace. If this is the case, we might as well take the initiative to go to Tianji Tower first to see which Tianji Tower owner has what attitude. As for testing the Tianyuan world, I think someone else will take action on our behalf. The meaning of headmaster is. Huang Yun seemed to have thought of something, and he reacted immediately. In the immortal world. But there are not only two true immortals, the immortal Lord Changsheng and Taoist Zigzhu. Throughout the ages, there have been quite a few true immortals, but they are all hidden from the world. Nowadays, the world is merging, and there are only a few people who can sit still. It won't be long. Estimate. There will be many supreme true immortals who can't bear the loneliness in their hearts and take the initiative to jump out. Other forces are still taking the initiative to attack the Zixuan realm. Their vision is not so short-sighted. Presumably they also saw the superior location of Tianyuan world. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 368. At this time. Tianyuan world. Still peaceful. Many cultivators are talking about what happened in the Zixuan realm. The fusion of one world is no small matter. The other side of their Tianyuan world has also merged with a world, which is the Blood Demon world. It is different from Zixuan realm. There was no war in the Tianyuan realm, and the creatures of all races did not feel frightened. Instead, many people rushed towards the Blood Demon realm. After entering the Blood Demon realm, some people accidentally stepped into the restricted area and were wiped out in ashes, while some people obtained the inheritance of a certain Blood Demon world that had been destroyed, and soared into the sky. An even more powerful force picked up a well-preserved imperial weapon in the Blood Demon world. Even others found a medicinal garden. There is a great saint-level elixir growing in it, and it is almost mature. When this news came out, it caused an uproar. I don't know how many cultivators lost their lives for a great saint-level elixir. Inside the Tianji building, Li Yun sat leisurely. He had just sent away a person who entered the Tianji tower to buy news. The person who came was none other than Baikan Hung of the Tianyan dynasty. During this time, the Tianyan dynasty was making a lot of money in the Blood Demon world. The entire power level was suddenly raised to a new level. An ancestor of the Tianyan dynasty broke through the realm of Quasi-Emperor a few days ago. For this reason, the Tianyan dynasty hosted a banquet for guests. The banquet alone lasted for more than 3 months. Within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles, the reputation of the Tianyan dynasty has risen by more than a level. There is quite a feeling of recreating the glory of the past. After Baikan Hung left, outside the Tianji building, a figure in black robes came from a distance. Her whole body was like a wisp of smoke, formless and very blurry. Before and after arriving at the door of Tianji Tower, she began to solidify. It was a faint female figure, standing under the eternal starry sky, looking down upon the world. She came alone, with her hair flying, her clothes flying, and her extraordinary grace, as if she had come from a myth, and she was extremely transcendent, like a fairy coming to the world. Tianji Tower. A soft murmur came out. No emotion could be heard, and she was thinking about the inheritance in her mind. In the past, the underworld ruled countless worlds, and there were shadows of the underworld in many terrifying worlds. If the Tianji Tower was in the past years, if it had ever appeared in the world, it is impossible that there would be no news about Tianji Tower in the underworld. But the result disappointed her. Tianji Tower seemed to suddenly appear in the Tianyuan world. In the past history, there was no shadow of Tianji Tower at all, and it did not belong to any world. Even if it did not belong to any world, there is no record in the underworld. Is it too strong or too weak? Her temperament is refined and does not belong to this world. She has an aura that does not eat fireworks. She will transform into an immortal at any time. Although she is standing outside the Tianji Tower, her body is far away in another space. Others can have no worries stepping into the Tianji Tower, but she can't. She knows how terrifying her inheritance is. Once it is exposed, there will be no place for her in all the worlds. Now, she still doesn't know, this extremely mysterious Tianji, what is the attitude of the landlord? If this Tianji landlord is hostile to the underworld, or if this Tianji landlord is a powerful person who participated in the destruction of the underworld in the past. It is no different for her to take the initiative to step into the Tianji Tower. She was seeking her own death. Emperor Ming, who had always been strong, domineering, and ruthless, looked at the three words Tianji Tower above him, and showed a rare expression of hesitation. On the one hand, she really wanted to enter the Tianji Tower, and collect the information from the Tianji Tower. Judging from the news, there is the opportunity she needs in the Tianji Tower, which can help her quickly become an immortal. After all, strength is the first in all the worlds. She has been fighting against the major forces, one of which is to completely destroy the underworld in the future. The second reason for forming and laying the foundation is to obtain resources so that one can quickly improve one's strength. If one day, enemies from the underworld arrive and one's strength is insufficient, then everything in the future will turn into a flower in the mirror and a moon in the water. But on the other hand, she really couldn't see through the Tianji building. To be precise, she couldn't even see through the Tianji building in front of her. It was impossible for her to pin her life on the misty luck. If it was the Tianji building, if she knows the existence of the underworld and has no favorable impression of the underworld, she may not even have a chance to escape. Although there was an immortal emperor in the underworld before, the immortal emperor was not herself, so she did not have any confidence to face the master of Tianji. Just before when she was hesitating, a clear voice sounded in her ears. "Now that you are here, why are you hesitant?" Before she finished speaking, the next moment, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed. When she came back to her senses, she was already standing in the Tianji Tower. This was not the incarnation of her soul, but her true body. "You." Emperor Hades' beauty turned pale. "How could my body come to the Tianji Tower out of thin air when it was clearly in another dimension?" "Secret, Senior." "What do you mean?" The black mist around Emperor Hades dissipated. She was wearing a black robe with a beautiful face. There was no decoration on her clothes. She stood there, tall, and her whole body seemed to be glowing. After experiencing the initial panic, years of experience made her calm down quickly. Her hair was fluttering gently, her facial features were exquisite, her black dress highlighted her graceful and proud appearance, her skin was as white as if carved from mutton fat jade, and she was unparalleled in elegance. "Sit." Li Yun glanced at the other party and then withdrew his gaze. Emperor Ming's appearance is worthy of being number one on the beauty list, comparable to that of Yu Qingxian. If it were other people who saw it for the first time, there is no guarantee that they would not be distracted for a moment. But for him, he is almost immune. He has compiled the list. If he wants to see everyone on the stunning list, he can see it every day. The barrier of Hades and others is, to him, as if nothing. "Dare I ask, Senior, which world are you from?" Underworld Emperor did not sit down, but still stood where she was. Her pretty face was tense and she lost her usual calm look. Facing a person who was terrifying to an unknown extent, no one in the Tianji Tower could remain calm. "This news is worth a lot of money," Li Yun said slowly. Li Yun's own origin is more important than anything else. With his current strength, he is not afraid of others knowing. Even if someone knows, there is nothing he can do. Moreover, in his previous world, these no one can be found at all. I can only automatically imagine an extremely terrifying world. Is it valuable? Underworld Emperor muttered to himself and did not ask any more questions. It was enough for her to confirm that the owner of the TNG building in front of her had no ill intentions towards the underworld. In this way, she would have no worries next time she came to the TNG building. As for it doesn't matter to her which world the TNG tower owner in front of her comes from. Now she can make enemies everywhere among her peers. But she cannot provoke TNG tower at will. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 369. Senior. Emperor Hades' expression regained his composure, and his entire body turned into an eternal glacier, exuding an aura that no strangers should enter. She opened her red lips lightly, wanting to confirm whether the TNG building master in front of her was as powerful as rumored. Don't ask about your future and the past in hell. Although I know it, you can't afford the price. Li Yun spoke first, interrupting what Ming Emperor was about to say. Ming Emperor shoulders the burden of reincarnating the underworld into the world, and the future is destined to be uneventful. Although she is not the protagonist of a certain world, she is also a person of great luck. The future is not something that a true immortal can investigate at will. As for the underworld, it is even more terrifying. It is related to an immortal emperor. A true immortal is not qualified to investigate at all. Emperor Ming's face froze, and he was stunned. What he wanted to say was completely blocked. Enemies of underworld. You can't afford this either. Li Yun glanced at the other party and said angrily. The underworld has been destroyed. The forces that destroyed the underworld, thinking with their toes, at least there is an immortal emperor. How can a little true immortal get involved in such news? To put it bluntly, in the eyes of an immortal emperor, a true immortal is not even an ant. That is already a creature of the same level. The gap between the two sides is countless times more exaggerated than the natural chasm. Your current strength is inferior to that of a Yinsha in the underworld in the past, but you want to know the truth about the destruction of the underworld. It is simply ridiculous. Li Yun seemed to have thought of something. He raised a finger and pointed at a black ring on the hand of Emperor Hades. He said softly, I almost forgot that the corpse in your storage ring was an underworld man during his lifetime. Yin difference. You know his strength better than you do. Immortal realm. After hearing this, Emperor Ming's expression suddenly changed. She took a few steps back and covered the storage ring with her other hand without leaving a trace. This is her biggest secret. No one except herself. I got it. But I didn't expect that as soon as I stepped into TNG building, the owner of TNG building said it casually. Don't be nervous. If you can afford the price, I can tell you where those underworld generals and the ghost kings fell. Those characters, the inheritance they carry, and the secrets they know are much more than a Yinsha. Correct. Li Yun changed the topic and seemed to have remembered something again, so he spoke again. You don't think that a Yinsha will carry the complete refining method of the 6 paths of reincarnation, do you? Underworld Emperor. Senior, is there a complete refining method for the 6 paths of reincarnation? Underworld Emperor asked softly. She knew that the 6 paths of reincarnation in her hand was imperfect, which was also the biggest motivation for her to go to other worlds. Only by stepping out of the earthly immortal realm would it be possible to refine the complete 6 paths of reincarnation. Have. Li Yun nodded, half smiling but not smiling. I even know the 6 paths of reincarnation refining method that is more perfect than the one in the underworld. Senior, you. Emperor Ming's delicate figure looked at Li Yun in disbelief, and a huge wave of fear arose in her heart. 6 paths of reincarnation was the biggest trump card of the underworld in the past. Only the immortal emperor knew the complete refining method. Can the TNG building master in front of him really calculate everything through deducing TNG? If it can be calculated, This would be incredible. If he hadn't calculated it, there were only two possibilities left. The master of Tianji Tower in front of him was either the former master of the underworld, or he was the biggest enemy of the underworld. Only these two will have the refining method of the 6 paths of reincarnation in their hands. You think too much. Li Yun didn't explain too much. Senior. Emperor Hades spoke. She originally came to Tianji Tower just for the chance to become an immortal. She wanted to take a look and see if the owner of Tianji Tower knew the origin of the underworld. But what I didn't expect was, after arriving at Tianji Tower, I heard the words of the owner of Tianji Tower. She was filled with questions. The complete refining method of the 6 paths of reincarnation and the complete cultivation method of the underworld are each crucial to her, but it is a pity. It seems that she can't afford every news. Senior, this is a jade slip that teaches martial arts. It records 2 complete imperial scriptures, as well as many emperor-level magical powers and secret techniques. Emperor Ming considered it for a moment, then took out a jade slip and placed it in front of Li Yun. She didn't take the initiative to ask for any news. Instead, he opened his mouth and said, "The senior believes that this jade slip can be exchanged for some news, and it will be beneficial to the junior, even though it is clearly stated." "Oh? Li." Yun raised his eyebrows. He picked up the jade slip and took a look at it, then put it away. After pondering for a moment, he slowly said, "I do have news here, which is more beneficial to you. The juniors are all ears." The Ming Emperor's voice was cold and his attitude was a bit respectful. She was very curious about what kind of news the mysterious Tianji landlord in front of her would tell her. "The matter is related to the heirs of the underworld." Li Yun chuckled lightly and said, "In the past, the underworld swept the heavens and ruled countless worlds. For such a giant, you don't think they can only choose one successor, right?" Senior means. Emperor Ming's heart moved, and she felt that she seemed to understand something. "There are many existences like you in all the worlds, and each of them bears the burden of the rise of the underworld." Li Yun smiled casually. "Among these people, the inheritance in their hands is much more perfect than yours, and the inheritance in their hands is not as good as yours. I said this, do you understand? This news is important to say it is important, and it is not important to say it is not important. For others, the underworld is playing a big chess game, but for Hades, this is not a good thing. From the surface, he is not like the inheritor of the underworld, but more like a chess piece, or the underworld is raising goo to see who can stand out. Only the most outstanding one can shoulder the burden of the rise of the underworld. Is that so?" Emperor Ming's expression was calm. From the outside, there was no sign of any joy or anger, but outsiders had no way of knowing what she was like in her heart. Li Yun didn't say much. He said this was enough. He told Emperor Ming, "There are many people like him in all the worlds. With her character, she may not be able to hold back the murderous intention in her heart. After all, there is only one future master of the underworld. The other inheritors of the underworld will probably follow suit. The same idea as the Emperor of Hades. It sounds a bit cruel. The descendants of the underworld are already in the dark, and they are still fighting each other internally. They are a bit self-destructive, but if they are in this environment, they can still rise against the sky. There is no doubt. This he must be an astonishing genius." Li Yun sat on the chair, holding the teacup in the palm of his hand, and took a sip. From the corner of his eye, he inadvertently glanced at the system panel of Hades' Emperor. Her thoughts, Li Yun instantly know everything. It seems to be done. Li Yun smiled in his heart. He told the other party this news not without purpose. The other party knew that there were many descendants of the underworld in all the worlds, but it was not so easy to know who the descendants of the underworld were. After all, not everyone is as high profile as Emperor Hades. Fantasy, me. Create a secret building at the beginning. Author, Mavericks Flying. Chapter 370. Senior, in the three worlds now, besides me, are there any other descendants of the underworld? Underworld Emperor spoke. Although his voice was calm, underneath this calm surface, there was a shocking murderous intention. The descendants of the underworld could not live in harmony with each other, so asking them to hand over the inheritance in their hands was nothing more than a dream. Only after the separation between life and death can we get what the other party has. You seem to have forgotten the rules of Tianji Tower. Li Yun took a sip of tea, slowly put down the teacup, and said casually. It was the junior who was being abrupt. Underworld Emperor raised his hand, and an imperial weapon fell on the table. She raised her head lightly and said, Senior, can you speak now? Can. Li Yun picked up this imperial weapon, looked at it, and said casually, in the three worlds now, except for you, there is no other descendant of the underworld. No. After hearing this, Emperor Hades felt a little relieved and at the same time a little disappointed. Seniors and juniors want to know how long it will take for the juniors to step into the realm of true immortals by relying on their own cultivation. Underworld Emperor pondered for a moment. She took out a 3-foot-tall imperial medicine and placed it on the table. This was the imperial medicine she cultivated personally. It could save the life of an emperor at a critical moment. Now, she has start preparing to enter the true fairyland. This imperial medicine is no longer of much use to her. 1300 years. Li Yun said. 1300 years sounds like a long time, but in reality it is very short. For those who become emperors, their lifespan is tens of millions of years. It is simply not worth mentioning. Emperor Ming has never. It has only taken 100,000 years to practice so far. There is still a lot of time in the future. She can afford to wait for 1,300 years. But it is a pity. She does not want to wait anymore. The style of Emperor Hades, domineering, cold-blooded, and extremely ambitious. She knew very well how many enemies she had provoked, if it were limited to the earthly immortal realm. She could still wait for 1,300 years. But now that the three worlds are merging, she can feel that the levels of the three worlds, a jump has already occurred, and it may not be long before someone above the true immortal appears. Therefore, if she continues to remain at the peak of the great emperor for 1,300 years, anything can happen in the meantime. The supreme true immortal, maybe there is nothing that can be done to her. But if a character in the immortal realm wants to take action against her, her life-saving object may not be able to save her. If the seniors give me guidance, how long will it take to become an immortal? Underworld Emperor spoke again. At the same time, she took out several quasi-emperor level items and placed them on the table. 1 year. Li Yun spit out 2 words. 1 year? Emperor Ming was startled. She thought about the situation in Zixuan realm in her mind, pondered for a moment, and then asked again, Senior, can this time be shortened again? Can. Li Yun nodded, waved his palm, and a ray of light flashed through his palm, and a crystal clear jade cocoon appeared, and said, here is the method of becoming an immortal. From the moment you get it, you can become an immortal at any time, but the final time you become an immortal depends on your own choice. Emperor Ming frowned slightly and asked in confusion, Senior, what does this mean? Just the literal meaning. Li Yun put the jade slip on the table and said slowly, it is your destiny to become an immortal in 1 year. Whether you can reverse your destiny depends on every choice you make after leaving the Tianji Tower. Practitioners are inherently going against nature. A storage ring appeared in the hand of Emperor Hades, and he placed it on the table. Then he picked up the jade slip, looked at it carefully, and said, the younger generation has never believed in destiny if he has come this far. Wrong. Hearing this, Li Yun shook his head and said, practitioners all follow the will of heaven. If heaven does not allow it, you will accomplish nothing. How can you reach this stage today? In fact, it has already been destined somewhere. When you can jump out of the long river of time, let's talk about going against the will of heaven. Does the senior know something? Ming Emperor was curious. Before coming to Tianji Tower again, Emperor Moun once said that there are two great emperors in the Zixuan realm who are still missing. Those two are both at the peak of the great emperors. It only takes one chance to step into the true immortal world. She didn't know when the other person would become an immortal, so she desperately wanted to make herself an immortal before the two great emperors became immortals. After all, the current fate of the Zixuan realm has an inextricable relationship with the underworld. At present, the other forces in the earthly immortal realm have all come to an end and have launched a conquest against the Zixuan realm. But when the two great emperors from the Zixuan realm return as immortals, who will they attack immediately? Just think about it and you will know. It must be the underworld. Because the underworld was the first one to come over, and there was no real immortal sitting in charge yet, it was the best way to use it to establish authority. Emperor Hades thought to himself that he had something to save his life. Even if the two great emperors became immortals, he would not what happened, but not necessarily his own men. He was killed and became a bare commander. He could not rule a vast territory with his own strength. Right now, you can no longer afford any news. Li Yun glanced at Hades, his eyes fell on her fingers, and said softly, unless you are willing to take out the inheritance from the underworld, or the ancient corpse in your ring. This. Emperor Hades' expression changed, and he suddenly became nervous. This is the foundation of her heritage. It is impossible to take it out unless absolutely necessary. To a certain extent, the significance of a corpse in the immortal realm is countless times greater than the threat of taking out a true immortal weapon. In this case, I will come again next time, Junior. Underworld Emperor stood up, she slightly cupped her hands and said softly. Although she couldn't afford the news, the owner of Tianji didn't say that she had to become an immortal in a year. It was just destiny. She didn't believe that she couldn't reverse the destiny. After all, Tianji, the news that the poster sold it. In a sense, isn't it just that he has been modifying other people's destiny? In the original timeline, he should have become an immortal 1,300 years later, and that was his original destiny. Now he has been pulled in for 1 year. From this point of view, if he does not act according to the original rules of heaven, his destiny is not static. Li Yun nodded. He glanced at Emperor Ming's thoughts casually, and he was quite amused. Emperor Ming actually wanted to go against the will of heaven. Such words are just a slogan, but they must be put into practice. Not to mention the strength of the great emperor, even a true immortal is not enough. Not to mention a world that is too powerful, that is the current world. It does not take much effort for a chasm in the sky to fall and kill a true immortal. After all, the levels have changed.